Hello and welcome back to the Charity Shop Chat podcast with myself, Charlotte Greenwood. And today Mimi couldn't join us, so one Cartwright couldn't join us, so we went for the next best thing, and that was the closest Cartwright I could find. So please welcome my very special guest co-host. It's Jane Cartwright from the Charity Retail Consultancy. Welcome, Jane.
Well, thank you very much, Charlotte, and I'm delighted to be co-hosting and trying to fill Mimi's shoes as best I can.
I'm sure you'll do a great job. So as always, the podcast is powered by the Charity Retail Consultancy, supporting charities with expert retail guidance, strategy and training to help maximise income and impact. And don't forget Charity Retail Learning in conjunction with the CRA, with almost 50 online modules designed specifically for you charity retailers.
And I don't know about you, Charlotte, but one of the things I hear all the time from charity retailers is our shop needs a refit, but we just don't have the budget these days. And whilst there are times when investment is needed, one of the biggest myths in charity retail is that improving a shop always requires thousands of pounds. Sometimes, though, the biggest opportunities are already sitting on the shop floor.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think shops really need to look at better layouts, better stock presentation, better customer flow, and we've seen that when you do that, then shops increase average spend, improve customer perception, and create much stronger visual impact without spending a fortune. And sometimes you really don't need to spend very much at all.
So today's episode is called the £0 Shop Refit. How to transform a charity shop without spending a fortune. And joining us today is someone who knows a thing or two about making charity shops look amazing. Visual merchandising expert, consultant, and all-round creative powerhouse, Kat Maclennan.
So grab a cuppa, have a look around your shop whilst you're listening, and let's dive in. Welcome, Kat.
Oh, thank you. What a lovely introduction. Thank you for inviting me. Very happy to be here.
So when you walk into a charity shop for the first time then, what are the most common visual merchandising mistakes that you spot?
Well, I think whenever you go into a charity shop, it's always a exciting moment, isn't it, to see the window and then step over the threshold, and you never know what you're going to find, and that is the beauty of charity retail. But there are definitely some things that put customers off or don't encourage them to walk further into the space. And I think one of the big things is to think about those first 4 steps when customers step into a shop. And often I find that people tend to put a fixture right there in front of the door. And the thing is, when you're walking along the pavement, you're actually walking quite fast. And then you come into a shop and you need 2 or 3 steps to slow down to realise where you are and look around you and see what's going on. So if there's a fixture there, you'll either walk straight past it or you'll just bump up against it and feel a bit, discombobulated. So I think having space at the entrance is a really good thing to do as a starting point.
That's fascinating. I've never thought about that before. I remember learning when I was new to the sector, 21, with my first shop, and Jack, the visual merchandiser for Oxfam, visited my shop, and he told me to walk in a customer's shoes, and he told me how few seconds you have when you're walking past the front of a charity shop and how you grab people's attention. But I'd never thought about that entrance into the shop.
Yes.
And the opportunities and the challenges that you can have without knowing it.
Yeah.
So that's a great start.
Yeah, I always thought you had to put your best stuff on the beginning fixtures because that's what draws people in. But I actually hadn't thought about the transition from going from I'm walking along down the high street to I need to be in shopper mentality.
That's exactly what it is, Charlotte. It's getting a shopper to come off the pavement, marching along to realise that they're in a shop. And that fixture is super, super important. It is probably one of the most important fixtures in the shop. So you just really need to think about that. And that's why I do always recommend that it's something a flexible fixture so that you change it really frequently, that it can be quite low. So it means that you can see through to the rest of the shop and not be like a, I don't know, a four-way fixture with dresses on it, but maybe something that gives you an opportunity to cross-merchandise other categories, whether that's a table and put a story on there. I almost think of it as like a third window, in fact, that first fixture when you walk into the store. And that's a really good place to start with any VM.
Great. That's fantastic. That's really helpful to me, and I'm sure to lots of other people who hadn't necessarily realised that. So when you've walked into the shop then, what do you feel are the warning signs that a shop is unintentionally making itself harder to shop?
Um, yes, I think there's a real challenge to get customers to shop the whole shop. That's what you want them to do, is to walk around the whole space, because the more product a customer sees, the more they will buy, but they have to actually be able to see it. So you want to encourage them to meander through the whole space and stop at every fixture. So you need a really clear customer journey and make sure that people can move between fixtures, which is an obvious one, but it's not always the case, is it? Not have things on the floor to get in the way of push chairs or people walking through. Um, and then you need to think about some really key focal points in your space to draw the customer's eye to all your categories. So if you're a traditional shop that's got 5 or 6 different categories in there, you want the customer to see where books are, where menswear is. So you need a focal point in each of those categories to draw customers through. So that's like the next layer onto your BM.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? I think it's a really interesting point you say about how customers want to see what they're shopping, because I think a lot of people come up with a conundrum: does more stock mean more sales? What's your viewpoint on, when people say, well, but we want to put out more stock to increase our sales densities versus, making it shoppable for customers?
Yeah, a really, really good point to think for charities to think about, because yeah, the more that the customer sees, the more they'll buy, but they actually have to be able to see it and shop it. There is a tendency that if you feel like sales are dropping, that you think, well, I just need to put more product out. But what happens then is you just get visual clutter and confusion, and people really can't see the individual items that they're buying. And I know it's challenging because you might have a lot of stock and no stock room, and you want to get things on the shop floor. But I always say to people, it's better to rotate product um, much more regularly to get new stuff out, rather than just putting out new things, because you just need space around product so that customers can see it and also shop. So on D-bars or floor fixtures, if there are too many hangers on the rail, customers find it really hard to go through every article and see what it is. So capacities are like a really important thing to agree within the business, to understand your hanger, how thick it is, and how many hangers you can fit on a D-bar, and then don't put any more than that agreed amount on there. Rather than trying to squish things out, and I can guarantee you will sell more.
Mhm. It makes the items more special, doesn't it? Rather than them just being all shoved in.
Yeah.
And like you say, the customer has to be able to shop them easily.
Yes.
And if it's too much like hard work, they
Yeah.
can just turn around and walk out. And
Absolutely.
also, they may have seen that item last week or even the week before, and sometimes even the week before that,
Yeah.
and they're still not buying it.
No.
So clear it out, move it on,
Yeah.
get the fresh stock.
Exactly. And so you can sell it in a different way. I can use an example that's not it's not charity retail, but I think it really highlights it. I did some work with a gift shop, and because once you get proper numbers, it really makes sense. We took 50% of their product off the shop floor and doubled their sales.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
And
incredible.
what they did was they then rotated the stock. So they did sell everything in the end, but they rotated it or they sold it through other means on websites through eBay and
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
but took 50% of it off the shop floor and doubled their sales.
That's an incredible
I know,
achievement.
yeah.
Was that when you were on the television,
It
Ms. Kat Maclennan?
it
I
was.
saw that
Did you?
episode. I can't remember what the show's called. Remind us.
It was it was, I think it's the hotel inspector, but we
Yeah.
didn't do hotels. It was sort of visitor
Yeah,
attractions, and it was in
Alex.
Yorkshire, a beautiful this amazing gift shop, and they just had so much stuff,
Mhm.
and we did have to give them a big talk to believe us that
Yeah.
if they took it off, but it worked, I've done it with charities as well, not on as big a scale as that, but
Mhm.
it really, really does work. It
Yeah.
really does work. Not to be afraid to take
Yeah.
product off.
Yeah, yeah. So, in that case, within the charity shop sector, how do you think shop managers can persuade their teams that reducing that clutter isn't the same as reducing income? I mean, they can quote you and that amazing
Yeah.
achievement you had, but on a day-to-day basis, when they're in their shops, how do they go about doing that?
I think they need to test it to believe it, and maybe pick a category or a fixture and really pare it down and monitor where sales are coming from. I'm a massive believer at looking at your sales figures and the category versus the amount of space has to see whether it's
Hmm.
worth having it there. So I think it's about looking at those numbers, and this is where VM becomes a real commercial um, decision maker and a really big part of growing a business. It's not, there is a lovely creative part of it that's really important, but the commerciality that you can gain from having good VM is astounding, and it's so quick that you can make a change. So I would just run a test, whether that's in one store to
Hmm.
completely change the capacities, or within a store just in an area, and monitor it and see how that goes, and then talk to your team about the figures, because if they can see those numbers and see where customers go as well. I
Yeah.
often stand at the front of shops and see where people come in and where they go. And when you're in a shop, the same shop every day, you sort of forget that and lose that. But if you look at your store with fresh eyes and see where they go, um, I think you can really drive sales and
Hmm.
try and get some numbers
Yeah.
behind it.
And that the data
The
tells
data.
you what you need then. So basically trial it, maybe trial it in one category or in one store,
Yeah.
monitor those sales. Most people have got, I'd say 99% have got EPOS tills,
Yes.
and they can easily then look at those categories and work out whether
Yeah.
they can
And
achieve
then you've
more
got a
with less.
case study then, haven't you,
Yeah,
to sell it into other
exactly.
stores,
Exactly.
and really prove that it works. And then there might be some, because the beauty of charity shops is this sort of balance between being somewhere that that's shoppable and looks great, but also you still do need that discovery and that rummagey feel. So it is challenging to get the balance absolutely right, and you can
Mm,
sometimes you can go too far each way. So you've got to
mm.
test it out to find what the balance is for you, really, your customer and your shop.
And that's the biggest misconception about VM, isn't it? That VM, people think VM is about making things just look pretty,
Mm.
when really it's about understanding customer behaviors, consumer behaviors, and how they shop to drive sales and making it look good at the same time.
Absolutely, and it depends on the type of shop you have, because charity retail is such a wide gamut, isn't it? From superstores to traditional charity shops or a specialist shop, and they've all got different different VM opportunities and challenges as well that go with that.
And would your advice be the same to have less stock on the shop floor if it's for a clearance type shop where it's, kind of stack it high, sell it cheap?
Yeah. No, I mean, the clearance is would be a different thing. So yeah, that's what I mean about the different types of shops should have different principles. And I'm a real massive believer of trying not to have sale rails and discount rails within your store, because it really does take away from everything else that you've got there. But if everything can go to 1 or 2 discount stores, you can do that really, really well, if it's thought through. And again, that would be just higher volume, 2 or 3 price points, and that's it. Make it really easy. Again, you're just making it easy for the customer to
Spend
see.
money.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And apologies, Kat, I've been a really, really terrible host because I was too excited to have Jane on with us. Um,
You shouldn't be that excited. I'm less exciting than you think.
but could you, for the listeners kind of listening to this episode, can you tell us your experience and where all of this experience has come from in
Oh
VM, a bit about
gosh.
your background?
Yeah, do you know, I never knew that, visual merchandising was a job role. I mean, I come from a art and design background, but I'd always worked in retail as a student and loved shops. I loved charity shops as a student, just how everyone knew we all just used to shop in them, and I used to, yeah, alter all the clothes and always shop in charity shops. And then when I left university, I just went straight into sort of mainstream retail, really. And then I've worked for brands, and on the shop floor. And then I think it was at Marks and Spencer's I was at, and then a job came up internally as a VM and window display person. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And so I did that and fell in love with it because it's so instant and there's a lot of strategic and creative thought that goes into it, but you can make a difference so quickly, whereas other design work takes a long time to design a dress and get it made and everything, but VM and retail is instant. So yeah, and then I've worked for design agencies, retail design agencies, and then the CRA, and then
And then
and
to
then
us.
Jane
Yeah.
approached me, the last 5 years, I think, I've worked with you, and absolutely love it because there's so much. I don't know, so passionate about charity shops, and there's so much opportunity, and I really believe that now is the time for charity shops because everyone else is jumping on, reuse and sustainability, but we are the original. We're the experts,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we've got to do it really well. And we, yeah,
100%. 100%.
yeah,
We are the home of pre-loved
exactly,
and sustainable shopping, as well as, giving volunteers opportunities, which gives job opportunities, as well as obviously being the greenest
yeah,
retailer on the high street
absolutely,
and raising a ton of money, unrestricted income for charities. So there is nothing not to love about it.
yeah,
And now that the rest of the world has caught on and pre-loved clothes are going to overtake the sale of,
yeah,
n- commercial
yeah,
new stuff, this is our space. So getting the VM right is
absolutely,
so important. It's a massive opportunity
yeah,
to bring in those customers who might not have necessarily shopped in charity shops before,
yeah,
and they'll go to a vintage shop
yeah,
and they'll buy pre-loved stuff in whether it's Toast or whether it's Marks and
yeah,
Spencer's these days or wherever. But we need them through our doors, and good VM is the
yeah,
key to
absolutely.
doing that.
And I think it's about, within that, is to think about your customer, because I'm not sure whether everybody does all the time. I don't know. There's a real opportunity to think about where your shop is, what type of person comes in, and what are they looking for, and then tailor the look and feel of that shop with your local community. So if you're in a real
Mm,
studenty place, it can look very different than somewhere that's maybe got a slightly older demographic. But it's about understanding who that customer is,
mm,
and making the shopping experience good for them. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we promised our listeners the £0 shop
Ah.
refit. So let's imagine a shop that has absolutely no budget. Where would you recommend they start?
Well, I would start by just standing back and looking at the space as a whole, and maybe think about what you can do with your shop fit without spending any money, but by moving things around. So if you have got a flexible shop fit, whether that's slotted uprights or a slat wall, can you refresh that and make it look different using the equipment you've already got? So think about where your category placement is within the space. Think about creating a focal point everywhere. Um, and just moving your metalwork and shelves around. That will give the shop a new feel immediately, without spending any money at all. And then you can look at repurposing. I mean, we're charity retail, aren't we? We
Hmm.
could repurpose so many things. And if you have furniture donations, can you use any of those items as pieces of shop fit? You know, I've done things with nests of tables at the front of the store or wardrobes in the wall. Use what you've got to make it look different and new again.
Brilliant. And is there any kind of shop layout that works best for selling items? So should you always have women's wear at the front, or should you put it at the back to force people to walk through and past everything else? What are the
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, because there is sometimes, you know, you think like supermarkets when they merchandise, they always put like eggs and milk right at the back of the
Hmm.
customer journey because everyone's going to buy them, so you have to go through past everything else. But I think clothing wise, and yeah, if you've got lots of categories within one space, I think you need to look at the sales to start with to find out how much space, and then think about your adjacencies as well. So what categories naturally should sit next to each other, um, and then I mean, traditionally, women's wear would normally be at the front because it would probably be the biggest category, wouldn't it? And
Yeah.
probably draw people in. But as I said, that front fixture, I think, should be flexible. So that might not always be women's wear. You could, like, you know, we just had Father's Day, so you could have done a whole Father's Day story, yeah, on that front fixture, or you might do books at some point, or you know, kitchenalia. So I think as long as you've got some flexible space, your anchor categories can almost stay where they are.
So you'd encourage shop teams to think about the sort of calendar,
Yeah.
the annual calendar, and for that to be led in the windows, but then in this third sort of window
Yeah,
space that you're describing. So that again is drawing people in
yeah,
and creating something that's new and fresh and topical,
yeah.
before they then choose to
Go
go
in the rest of
beyond to
yeah,
the rest of the
because
store.
they're probably your customers may well come in. I don't know, like some people come in every day, don't they?
Yeah, they
But, you
do.
know, or once a week. And so it's important to keep it fresh for them, and you will sell more from that space if it
Mhm.
changes all the time. And yeah, you're right, it's an opportunity to match with the windows. But then when you walk into the store, I know we sell from the windows and you can buy whatever's in the window, but if there's something similar on that table,
Mm.
you just pick it up. Yeah, makes the whole story.
Yeah, I like that idea. Let's seasonal flexi space at the front.
Mm.
I like that.
Mhm. And what about colour blocking? Tell me what you
Ooh.
to colour block or not to colour block,
That is
Kat?
the question.
That
Oh
is the
my
question.
goodness.
But do you feel that it has a part to play in creating stronger visual impact with this £0 refit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had all those debates with like many charities, and there's pros and cons to doing things by colour or by size. But I think there's definitely space to colour block visually. Visually, it works really well. I know, you know, certain customers like to shop by size, but I know myself personally that every brand sizes are always really different, aren't they?
Totally agree
So I
with you.
don't really look at the size, and I personally get drawn by colour. But I think again, it's just about testing it to see what works, and also maybe in some areas to merchandise by colour, like brick, I think can look really great when it's merchandised by colour. And also, and again, this might be a bit controversial, I don't know, but if you've got like a
Mm.
small book section, to do that by colour looks much it almost looks easier to shop than
Wow, that is
I know.
proper controversy.
I've seen it done. I've seen it done, but only if it's a small. But only if it's a small. If you've got a massive, book section, no, you've got to do it alphabetically. But if it's just a couple of shelves, I would be tempted to do it
Yeah,
by colour.
I 100% agree with you. I think if it's a couple of shelves, then
Yeah,
absolutely it draws the eye,
yeah,
it takes you over to it because it doesn't look jumbly.
yes,
It's appealing, isn't
yeah.
it? So yeah, for those small book areas,
Yeah, yeah. And so
do
I just
it.
think it is about being selective maybe and testing it and testing it out. I think in some shops it does work really well to do all the all women's wear by colour. It looks so strong. And I've done a few before and after photographs when we've tested it, and it looks amazing. But then they get a bit worried that it's not going to sell as much. But yeah, I think you've got to try it, and there may be just certain places within the journey that you
Yeah.
might want to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the data again
Yes.
dictates what you do going forwards. You
Yeah.
know, it's a tough time on the high street right now for everybody. Um, but if it means that you're selling more, then that's what everybody wants because that's making the difference to the charity at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So you will, because the thing is, you'll always get some complaints, won't you?
Mm.
People, I don't like colour blocking. Why don't you colour block me? You know, wherever they're coming from. But the data, the
Yeah.
results, the performance, that should
And I
dictate
think
where you go.
it's about really just trying things out, not being afraid to try it out, because that's when I first started doing this job role, that's what I loved about it, that you could change something in like a couple of hours and then just see how it worked. You can always change it back.
Mhm.
We're
Exactly.
not building something permanent. So you can sort of test it out. And something else that I've done with a lot of retailers, and I think charity shops could easily do this as well, is we just used to turn the fixtures round, like at lunchtime. So in the morning, the front facing things would be one way, and then we'd turn the fixtures round and it would look like you'd re-merchandise the whole shop. And people would come in that had been in the morning and go, "Oh, we
Mm.
got some new stuff out." We go, "Yes, yes," but we'd literally just turned the four-way round, yeah. So that's
Great.
instant
Wow.
change. Mm.
Great example. So, can you share a few examples of where small changes like that have created some significant results? So, that's a really good example.
Yeah,
But is there anything else that you can think of that somebody could just sort of go in, make a small change, and
yeah.
make a difference?
I mean, changing your window, that's like obviously it doesn't cost anything, and that makes a big difference to change everything out. I mean, we
Hmm.
could do a whole podcast about windows. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the whole thing, isn't it? But I think making those really strong, and if you're having feels like you're having a slow day, change the outfits in the windows and see what happens. I can guarantee you'll get some new people in through the door. So I think that's a good one to do.
And do you think you should have a bit of everything that you sell in the shop in the windows or keep it very themed?
Again, I think that you need a calendar. You need to plan this, and I think there's place for both of those things, because if you did a window that was in for a week that had lots and lots of stuff in, very sort of traditional charity shop window, lots of different categories, that's great. But then, how cool would it be to then take everything out and then just have three bust forms in, I don't know, pick a colour theme because it's, wedding season,
Mhm.
um and it would look really different. Because I think what happens is sometimes with windows, if you do the same thing but just different product, it still sort of looks the same.
So, have you ever walked into a shop and completely transformed it without spending £1 or more, or even less? 50p. What have you done
Without
for
me buying
less than?
anything, is that the yeah, I mean, I often, if I'm gonna go and work with a charity or anybody, but with a charity especially, I always think what we should do is look at what those quick wins that can be done, and they can be done, yeah, immediately. all the things we talked about, moving things round, getting the capacities correct, looking at little curated, exciting, interesting stories of product that you can put together. All of those things can be done as a first step, like a quick win, without spending any money at all. Then sometimes there's like another layer, and we might go, oh, well, maybe you do need, I don't know, the paint. I don't know, the walls painted, or maybe let's look at getting in some donated furniture and repurposing that. So I always think there's like layers that you can do, and a full on shop fit is an exciting process to go through, and really and lovely if you can. But I think you'd want to explore all those other things first, before feeling that you needed to invest in that.
Yeah.
I think I'm sure it was you that told me this tip, but talking about kind of heights of fixtures
Mm.
and making sure that you've got different levels of heights, and was it you called it a stadium effect?
Stadium effect.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. That's quite that's quite a good thing to follow. It's about having sort of like a tiered effect, so that your eye is drawn through the space and you can see every fixture. So if something's too high at the front, it completely blocks your view through to the back. So you need to start with something low, then have something a little bit higher, and then it's your wall ends up being the highest space. So it's like a stadium effect of seating in a stadium, so that your eye is drawn, and then really customers will walk through to that highest bit at the back of the store or the side, which is what you want them to do, isn't it?
And that's a good
Brilliant.
tip when you're trying to open a new shop or refitting and you're looking at fixtures.
Yeah.
Is making sure you've got either fixtures that can adjust the height, or you're
Yes.
buying different types that are of different.
Flexibility is the key thing. It really, really is. And if you're going to invest in anything, to make sure that it is a flexible bit of kit that you can use for any categories, and in many different ways.
Great. That's fantastic. So what about visual merchandising myths? What might they be, and what would you like to see disappear forever?
Yeah, what are we putting in room 101?
Exactly.
I really think that this idea that that VM is the arts and crafts movement coming in, it is something I've slightly had to battle against a bit, and it is really important. You need that creative element, but there's just so much more behind it, and that everybody needs to be responsible for the VM and the retail standards, not just the one person that that likes to dress the mannequins or do the windows. But I think it needs to be everyone. Everyone needs to understand it from a commercial aspect as well. So that's my biggest thing, that it's for everybody. It's not just for an artistic person.
So, Kat Maclennan, what one VM rule should every shop team follow?
One rule.
No pressure, but what would you choose?
Oh, I think that if you it's going to sound, it's quite fundamental, but I think if you can get your capacities correct, everything else should fall into place. If you get the right stock density, then your store will flow and be easier to shop. So that's like a really, really key thing.
Yeah, and just on that point, because you've talked about this before, and I 100% agree, it's so important. But you get some shops, like you said, that will have, say, wooden hangers that are really thick, and some maybe not the wire dry cleaning hangers, but much thinner plastic hangers, for example. You can get more out with a plastic hanger.
Yeah.
Might not look as good, but you can get a lot more out. But it does change those numbers. But I was always taught back in the day that if you push everything on the rail to one side, you should have maybe about 25% of space available, and that then gives you enough breathing space between those items
Yeah.
for the customer to shop.
That's
Would that
feels,
work, do you think?
that feels about right. Yeah, that's a good
Some
way of
yeah.
measuring it.
So you
'Cause-
push them all along,
Yeah.
25, maybe 30% absolute max,
Yeah.
but no less than
No,
20%.
because you're right. If you've got a thinner hanger, you can get more. You can get more out, but then you also have to think. Yeah, hangers. So again, that's a whole
Oh,
subject. Isn't it?
podcast episode about hangers, please.
The wooden ones, everything slips off
No,
but the other ones,
Good,
they look
and they
good.
can-
Thinner ones sometimes aren't as strong.
Yeah.
It's
And
yeah.
jackets and coats as well. You know, what should they need
Yeah.
to? Yeah,
And
so,
bedding,
I know,
curtains.
I know.
Oh my word.
I know. I know that is that. I thought you might ask me about
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but yeah.
I think those really, really big hangers, they're usually heavy plastic with a bar over the top to
Yes.
hold in
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
For me, those would be my go-to
Yes, yeah,
bedding hanger.
yeah, and just be really careful about how much space you give to all of that, versus how much you sell. Keep it really,
Yep.
contained. I think
This was meant to be a quick fire round, and we've
Oh,
spent.
sorry.
I think we've spent 10 minutes on this VM rule, but that's partly our fault for getting overexcited on the hanger
well,
front.
you're a retailer when you've got an opinion on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we could talk for hours, but let's not.
So what's one VM rule that's made to be broken then?
One made to be broken, so I can contradict, because as much as I say, capacity really important. It's got to be shoppable, but I think there are moments within, the retail experience where you might want a bit of interesting abundance, and sort of mix your categories together, and tell an unusual story that really catches the customer's eye. And I think that's where, you can just do something a little bit different every now and then in certain areas, to really, I don't know, just encourage customers to buy more than one thing as well.
You've got to surprise a customer. You've got to keep a
Exactly, yeah.
customer on their toes.
Exactly.
You can't have them getting complacent about what they're going to find when you walk
No.
into the store. And that is so
Yeah.
important, I think,
Yeah.
within VM.
Yeah.
Surprise and excite.
Yeah, and a little bit of theatre.
Yes.
In areas, because if you get those two things right, then you've got the perfect retail experience. I think so. You've got real clean retail standards. Everyone knows that's where women's wear is. That's where blouses are. But then, look, there's the shoes and the hats, and maybe, I don't know, a book that goes with the story.
Yep.
And
You put that, if it's shop managers, volunteers, if your area manager comes in and goes, oh, that area looks a bit cluttered and overstocked, you're going, well, actually, I think you'll find that's just interesting abundance. I mean, that's a great way of putting it.
And what's the most underrated fixture in a charity shop?
Oh gosh, I think use of sort of tables. I don't know why there's not more tables in charity shops, because I just think you can just create such interesting displays rather than having everything hung. And again, you can mix and match accessories, bags, shoes, footwear with folded, a beautiful dress or a top, and some jewellery. Yeah, I think some flat spaces.
And biggest shop floor pet peeve?
Things on the like baskets and things on the floor.
I'm with you. I'm so with you.
Is it being on the floor that's the issue?
Yeah, I think. And I think it's on the floor. Because they just grow, don't they? They start off by one little sort of basket with something in, and then you turn your back and they've
multiplied.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I know it's easy, isn't it? Some things, it's easy for it to go in there, but I don't mind baskets on a shelf if it's, I don't know what would go in it. I don't know, like knitting wool or something, but not on the floor.
Okay. And one thing that every shop manager should do tomorrow morning.
Oh, I think
I know what you're going to say, but go on.
Oh no, what do you think I'm going to say? I think they should just come in to the store and look at it with try and look at it with completely fresh eyes, as if they were a customer, and the first time they walked into the space and really honestly look at it and think, can I get round everything? Can I see everything in the store? What what can I do to make this a more interesting and exciting place to be?
Fab. And what's the best charity shop display you've ever seen?
Um, I went into my it was my cancer research shop in Reigate, and it was so beautifully merchandised. I went up to about 3 different people that worked in there and told them that I thought it
Oh,
looked
good for
amazing,
you.
and they couldn't actually quite believe it because I don't think anyone really sort of says that, but it was just so beautifully thought through, and it was just a lovely experience in there, and it was busy. And yeah, I bought a few things in there as well, but it was just so beautifully merchandised and thought through. Um, so that would be one of the best shops I've ever been into.
Oh, well done. It makes such a difference to
Yeah.
people,
Oh
whether
yeah.
they're paid staff, whether they're
Yeah.
volunteers, to feel
Yeah.
appreciated, that their efforts are appreciated, and that you then went on to spend money,
Yeah. Well,
which
exactly. Well, it
the
worked,
proof
didn't
is
it?
in the
It
pudding.
worked.
Very good. Well, I think one of the biggest lessons from today's conversation is that visual merchandising isn't about spending money. It's about being intentional. Is that right, do you think, Kat?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. So basically, the shops that perform best aren't necessarily the shops with the newest fixtures or the biggest budgets. They're the shops that make it easy for customers to shop and easy for volunteers to manage stock and easy then for the great products to shine. So less clutter, better presentation, and stronger customer journeys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you're listening and thinking, oh, I'd really love some help with that, then this is exactly the kind of work that we support charities with through shop reviews, visual merchandising training, and practical in-store coaching with no less than Kat herself. So sometimes a fresh pair of eyes can really unlock those opportunities that have been hiding in plain sight. And our visual merchandising training has seen average spend increase in charity shops by over £6, which, that's a really impressive statistic. I'd love to be in a shop where I'm managing it and saying, actually, we've increased the spend by £6.
Absolutely. If you can do that, Kat, you are a miracle worker. The average spend of every customer to go up by £6, you are a miracle worker. And I think you're a joy to spend time with always. And I know you've made such a difference with so many charities that you go out and support. But as well as that, you can jump into area meetings, whole charity meetings, do it online for a really affordable, I think it's £250,
Yeah.
which, to have you in one of their meetings for a good chunk of time to make some of these differences. And I know you've done this in Australia. You've
Yeah.
done, you've done it in
Yes.
this country,
Yeah.
but they've sent you photos, they've shown you what their
Yeah.
challenges or their opportunities are, and you've made a real difference. So it's really, I'm loving my first podcast. I'm loving move over, Mimi. So I think we're kind of getting to the end, aren't we? I think it's time for our shop shout out. So, Kat, who would you like to give a shout out to today?
Well, I would like to give a shout out to the wonderful St David's Hospice, who I worked with, and they were just so open to everything and so excited. All the store teams and the volunteers were so interested, and we did some amazing work in one of their shops, without spending too much. They did spend a bit of money, but not too much money. But from a VM perspective, we really changed the look and feel, and they're just such a wonderful team. So they're my big shout
Yeah,
out.
they are a wonderful team.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan too. So that's lovely. And I think what you did was you went in when they were making some changes to one of their stores, and they took that day to bring all of their other store teams over, so you could train them all, and then you could implement that learning into
Yeah.
that store before it then reopened. So that was a really good use of their time and a lovely training opportunity, literally on the shop floor.
Yeah, absolutely. Best place to learn.
Fantastic. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Kat. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, please do follow the podcast. Leave us a review. You can find us all over the place, and I'll let Charlotte tell you where that is. So leave us a review and share it with others who love charity retail.
So you can follow us on Instagram at Charity Shop Chat and on Facebook and LinkedIn at the Charity Retail Consultancy. And Kat, they can find you on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Yes, definitely.
Right. And on our website as well for
Of
the Charity
course,
Retail
of course.
Consultancy. So come and see what it would be like to have Kat to come into your shops and reform all of your visual merchandising. But that is all from us today. But as always, charity shops are full of stories that deserve to be told, and we love sharing them with you. So thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.